victim no longer. No matter what the world is reflecting, whether circumstances are beautiful or terrifying, if your internal story is one of victimhood, you will suffer. It is very simple. If you are quite certain that you aren't telling yourself a story of victimization, and yet you continue to suffer, then I suggest you are lying to yourself. You are telling yourself some thread of an ancient story of how you have been wronged. Whether it is a story of how God or your parents or circumstances have wronged you, or how you have wronged yourself, it is all a story of you being the victim. Even the most violent aggressors, when the superficial layer of aggression is cracked, have a story of having been wronged. Striking out in anger or revenge always involves a story of victimization. Seeing how this victim story plays out in your own life is an important step toward realizing true freedom. When you really see it, you see that it has to be recreated each time it plays. It may surface in your mind through momentum, but to play it through takes energy, attention, belief, emotion, and some kind of masochistic pleasure in the pain. Yes, it's shocking. To see this operating within our own mind can be quite disturbing. The willingness to realize the truth of yourself, the willingness to be free, is the willingness to no longer be a victim, regardless of pain, circumstances, or the actions of others. To stop being a victim doesn't mean to trivialize the horror in your life, to deny it, gloss over it, or repress it. It means that you can fully meet whatever appears. You don't have to hide, run, justify, wail, curse, or moan. You can just meet life as it is. Are you willing to let your stories of victimization go? Are you willing to let all of those horrible aggressors go unpunished? At a certain point, you have to be willing to just call it off. Yes, there has been horrible suffering, and you have been on both ends of it. You have perpetuated it, and you have experienced it directed at you. Are you willing to end it? You are free to suffer, and you are free to stop suffering. No one can end it but you. That is where your freedom is. Conscious freedom is the freedom to meet suffering consciously, and then consciously choose to let it go. The bondage is in being unaware of the choice. You can choose to be free, or you can choose to suffer. It is up to you. The power of forgiveness. Everyone has experienced the sweet release of forgiveness, as well as the hard coldness of not forgiving. You know the difference, and you know the investment in the story that keeps a lack of forgiveness in place. You also know the relief when you actually forgive and let go of the burden. Our parents were not perfect. They consciously or unconsciously did things that were harmful to us, as our grandparents did things that were harmful to our parents. Our lovers, our children, our governments, and our competing tribes have harmed us. Now is the time to forgive. Horrible things are continually being done all over the planet, in our own individual minds and in the collective mind. To forgive these horrors does not necessarily mean to forget. You can forgive and let go without forgetting. A huge learning and humbling occurs when you are willing to see the story of humanity in all of its horrors. Yet you can also recognize how much effort is needed to hang on to the story. You can see that all of the effort and attention put into hanging on are actually a meditation on not forgiving. The stories continue to replay with an obsession over what should have been done or what might be done again. Continuing to replay the story saps your energy. It is exhausting. I honor the need to remember and to witness the horror that has been done and is still being done. But usually we bring to that memory more hatred, suffering, and misery, which ensures even more hatred, suffering, and misery. After the war in Yugoslavia in 1999, I saw a news clip of a home video filmed by a man who said he was making the video so that his children could see what had been done to them, so that they would never forgive or forget. The horrors occurring at that time were themselves in retaliation for what one group of people had previously done to the other. The futility and the waste of this kind of tribal warfare is going on within our own minds as well. I'm not going to let go of what they did to me because it was wrong. Yes, wrongs have been done and are still being done. There's no need to forget or deny the wrongs that have been done both to you and by you, but you can let go of suffering over them. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, is the truth. Any war that is going on because of what happened yesterday is a result of ignorance, of holding on to some idea of revenge. It is very tempting to hold on to these kinds of views because there is some pleasure in it, and that pleasure must be recognized. It is the pleasure of egoic righteousness. When you are unwilling to forgive, and you are holding on to a story of your suffering and who did it to you, you are cursing them, whether consciously or unconsciously. You must be willing to stop the karma with yourself. Be willing to say, no, this time it goes no further than me. This is the willingness to be at peace. The willingness to forgive is a natural outgrowth of the willingness to be free, and gives you the clarity to recognize the temptation to hold on. Finally, to be able to forgive this whole experience of humanity, with all of its functions, drives, aggressions, and desires, is to recognize what is untouched by any of that, what remains pure, innocent, and free even in the grossest of stories. In our desire to hold on to revenge, we actually keep ourselves from the experience of freedom. As with everything else, in our desire to hold on to one thing, we keep something else away. In the desire to give something, we actually receive. You can inquire directly within, what am I not willing to forgive? As you do this, you find another opportunity to bring to consciousness what has not been consciously seen, what might still be holding your mind in bondage. No effort is needed here, only the willingness to be completely honest. Once you have honestly seen what you are not willing to forgive, you might also find it helpful to ask yourself, what am I willing to forgive? Recognize forgiveness and savor it for a moment. It is important to not force anything, just to welcome all into the heart of consciousness. Can you forgive? Can you accept forgiveness?